Keir Starmer there. What do you get if you merge the letters BAE and EADS? Seabed, possibly, or debase. But when it comes to trying to merge the giant companies of the same name, you get a big recrimination-filled mess. Joe Lynam is here. Why does this matter, Joe?
Well, whatever your views on the subject, Britain is still pretty good at making weapons. And they have a number of specialist industries. The jobs are very well paid, they're highly skilled, they're very good at design, manufacturing and exporting the stuff. BAE is head and shoulders the best weapons manufacturer in Britain and even in Europe. It employs 35,000 people directly and indirectly, about 120,000 people. So who it merges with actually matters, because the technology then can either be exported or won and lost. It was due to merge with EADS. That died, of course, today. EADS owns Airbus, so they would have formed a giant civil and military aviation giant. But now it's not happening.
What went wrong?
Well, to misquote Harold Macmillan, politics, dear boy, politics. The Germans, the French and the Brits all had pretty strong views as to where the HQs should be based of this merged entity and where it was not to be based. In the event of factories having to close at some stage in the future, they all adopted political NIMBYism. The Germans said, no way, we're not losing any factories. Same with the French. The Germans were particularly worried that the headquarters for the civil bit, civil aviation bit, would be based in Toulouse, and the military bit would be based in Farnborough here in the UK. So they drew a line in the sand and said, no, we're not accepting this. So they're being blamed. Of course, the shareholders were livid as well. They told me on Monday that the major shareholder in BAE told me on Monday that they wanted to launch an Exocet missile at this merger. So they obviously got their target.
So what happens now to BAE?
Well, to use the phrase in the city, they are in play. Now, if you have a look at the share price of BAE Systems over the last few years, you'll see why. It's an amazing graph, actually. It's a downward curve, as you can see. And the reason for that is because they are dependent on defence spending, mostly in the US and the UK. 70% of their business is in the US and the UK. As you can see, the curve is going down because defence budgets are being squeezed post-2008, post-financial crisis. So they need to find a way to perk that curve back up. Now, I spoke to a senior player in the city in the defence industry today, and he was telling me about a plan which was floated a year ago, which was poo-pooed at the time, but might come back on the table. And that is that BAE Systems sells off or hives off its American business. With the £10 billion that they get from that, they pay off their pensions deficit, which is $5 billion. And then they focus on emerging markets in Asia, Latin America, and perhaps even Africa. The final question, of course, is what happens to the bosses? Why did they press ahead with this deal when they didn't have the blessing of the shareholders, lukewarm response from the governments, and factory workers are now more nervous than they ever were before? So Ian King and Tom Enders, respectively, may have their feet held to the fire at the next AGM.
Joe, thank you very much.